This is the MIAA Weekly.
Welcome. I'm Brandon Meisner. In this episode of the MIAA Weekly, we will wrap up last week's action, and we will talk about the playoff picture through Week 7. Mike Snow from ESPN 100.7 in Pittsburgh will join us. We'll preview the Gorillas game at Northwest Missouri. We'll also talk with Greg Hassler, the voice of the Mules, as UCM hosts Emporia State in what we're calling the MIAA Game of the Week. And we will also predict the outcomes from all the other games this week. Once again, thank you for joining us. We're going to start this week with last week's Game of the Week. Northwest Missouri rolled into St. Joe and escapes with a 27-23 win over Missouri Western. The two teams began the game by trading field goals, and then with a minute left in the first quarter, Reagan Jones was able to push the ball in from 1 yard out to give the Griffins a 10-3 lead. Northwest would answer. Tank Young had a 40-yard pass, basically goes untouched, and Bearcats tie it up at 10. Later, Northwest Missouri was able to find the end zone again as Hohensee found Trayvon Alexander. Nice catch there. Bearcats take a 17-10 lead, and then the Bearcats go up 24-10 when Hohensee found Keshawn Griffin. And again, it was a Bearcat 24-10 lead. On the next drive, the Bearcats looked like they could go up 3 scores, but Western had something to say about that. Desmond Green intercepts that ball, returns it 90 yards for a touchdown, cutting the lead to 24-17. Now, the Griffins would eventually cut the lead to 27-23, had a lot of momentum when Travion James caught a pass from Armani Eden. And that was a 27-23 lead for the Bearcats. They're trying to run out the clock, but here Jay Harris fumbles the ball. Missouri Western recovers. So the Griffins have a chance with about a minute left in the game. But Shane Frederickson closes the door, an interception right here. And the Bearcats escape with a 27-23 win at Missouri Western. That was the MIAA Game of the Week last week. All the other games were not close, and we didn't really expect them to be. Let's take a look at those scores. As predicted, Central Oklahoma has no problem with Lincoln, a 59-17 win for the Broncos. Emporia State and Washburn, a little tighter than I thought, but it is a rivalry game, and the Hornets come away with a 38-23 win over the Ichabods. Fort Hays controls the game, handles Nebraska Kearney 31-17. Pitt State had a lot of trouble with Southern early. Now, I've talked a lot about how Southern is an improving team. They definitely showed that. The Gorillas, of course, won 31-21. And finally, Central Missouri has absolutely no problem whatsoever with Northeastern State as the Mules win big in that one. All right, also wanted to congratulate Braden Gleason. Not only was he named the MIAA Player of the Week, he was named the D2Football.com Offensive Player of the Week. He completed 49 passes, had 421 yards, and threw for 4 touchdowns. We have completed 7 games of the 2023 regular season, and I think it's time that we can start taking a look at the playoff picture and see how MIAA teams are shaping up. Let's go ahead and add a screen share and share the website of our friend Inkblot Sports, who does a pretty dang good job at covering regional rankings and predicting regional rankings. But I want to walk you guys through this somewhat to understand what things look like this year compared to last year. We have sorted here by this rank. In this column right here, you can see how we sorted them from 1 through 39. But nonetheless, Pittsburgh State right now is number 1, according to him. Indianapolis is 2, Grand Valley 3, Harding 4, Davenport 5, Southern Arkansas 6, Truman 7. So that leaves Central Missouri with 1 loss out as of right now. Ouachita Baptist with 1 loss out right now. Ferris State with 1 loss out right now. Now, it's easy or too early, to basically say anybody's going to be out, but I want to walk you through this so that you understand What we're seeing, because on our Sunday show, Inside D2 Football, we've kind of looked at it, and if things play out the way we think they will, there will be 8 teams with 0 or 1 loss, meaning there will be 8 teams fighting for 7 playoff spots. And we could kind of see a repeat of what we saw last year. But certainly a second loss kind of puts you on the outside looking in 2023 in Super Region 3. So let's look at this. So Pitt State, even if they were to lose to Northwest this upcoming weekend, and the Bearcats pulled the upset there, they've got games that are winnable against Sioux Falls, Missouri Western, and Central Oklahoma. Having said that, I think the Gorillas are going to go undefeated, and we're going to finish the regular season 11-0. Let's look at Indianapolis, see what they have left. They have a game at Quincy, Upper Iowa, McKendree, and Southwest Baptist. Those are all games that they are going to win and probably win pretty easily. If you look at the opponent's record, though, they're going to 6 wins on their opponents. We got 16 losses. So they're going to play some folks who aren't that good, and their strength of schedule will grow down. Grand Valley, let's look at theirs. Northern Michigan, Michigan Tech, Wayne State, and Davenport to end the year. Now, Davenport will help them a little bit with strength of schedule. The others are not so helpful, but certainly it looks like the Lakers will finish 2-0, as I expect Davenport, who is ranked, as you see, number 5. I expect them to finish with 2 losses to Ferris and Grand Valley. Now, Harding has an interesting schedule, and really what we're looking at is, can they be tripped up by Southern Arkansas? Now, that would give Harding 1 loss, give Southern Arkansas 1 loss, and give Southern Arkansas the head-to-head if that came into play. It would not be out of the realm of possibility, but I really think Harding is going to win that game, and then it will make Southern Arkansas status moot. It won't matter. I already told you I thought Davenport would lose too. Now let's look at Truman. Truman has William Jewell left, Southwest Baptist left, Upper Iowa left, and Missouri S&T left. I think Truman's going to win every one of those games. Their strength of schedule is going to go down. It will be interesting to see if that strength of schedule hurts them like it theoretically did last year. And Truman could be a 1-loss team this year and getting left out of the playoffs. And they weren't happy with their omission last year. They would be less happy with that. Let's talk about Central Missouri. We've got Emporia State, obviously a threat. And, the MIAA is a little different in that, a lot of these teams are threats. But if the Mules get beat by Emporia State, I think their season in terms of the playoffs are done. Then I would expect them to win the last 3. But Emporia State's the key. If they beat Emporia this weekend, they would obviously be sitting pretty. And in terms of losses, and I think that they would still make it based over Truman based upon the strength of schedule. And then let's look at finally Ferris State. Ferris State is an interesting situation because they have 2 fewer D2 games than teams from the MIAA and the GAC and potentially from the GLVC, but essentially against the teams that they're competing against. They've got Michigan Tech, American International, Davenport, Wayne State. The strength of schedule is going to go down, but they're going to win every one of those games, even the Davenport game, which won't hurt them as much, but actually it'll help them. But overall, that's not going to be helpful strength of schedule for Davenport. So I think it's really interesting to look at that and to kind of understand that a second loss is going to be devastating this year. Likely means you're not in the playoffs, and even 1 loss does not guarantee that you will be in the playoffs. All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at undefeated Pitt State's matchup with Northwest Missouri. We'll be joined by Mike Snow from ESPN 100.7 in Pittsburgh.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and D2Football.com and Inside D2 Football are teaming up with the Pink Clover Foundation. This 501c3 nonprofit foundation was formed by family and friends after the passing of Colleen Sorbello in 2017. While she was fighting breast cancer for 4 years, she participated in many trials and was passionate about finding a way to make the treatment less harsh for women fighting breast cancer. Pink Clover's mission is to raise money for breast cancer research, provide free breast cancer education seminars, and closest to their hearts, provide comfort for women who are struggling while battling breast cancer. Since 2018, Pink Clover has raised over $670,000, providing direct assistance to women affected by breast cancer. They have also partnered with 3 hospitals and raised money for research, including the University of New Haven's Breast Cancer Research Laboratory. To see how you can help, visit pinkcloverfoundation.org or visit their Facebook or Instagram pages by searching Pink Clover Foundation.
Welcome back to MIAA Weekly. We are joined now by the program director, sports director, chief bottle washer, apparently, of ESPN 100.7, Mike Snow. Thank you very much for joining us today.
You bet. I appreciate you for having you having me on, and I love the website. It's a great tool, especially when you cover the MIAA. I find myself probably 5 or 6 times a day going to d2football.com. So I appreciate the work you guys do.
Well, fantastic. We obviously love to hear that. Let's talk about the football team in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Let's start with Chad Dobson. Started as a freshman. He continues to plug along. He has to be, just a high point of the Pitt State program, something to be really proud of right now.
Yeah, he is an unbelievable student in the classroom. He's going to be a doctor. He is 18-0 as a starter in the MIAA, 19-1 overall. The lone loss was by a field goal at Ferris State. I know it's not flashy. I know he doesn't beat you necessarily with his arm. He doesn't beat you with his feet, but he is a classic case of a game manager. And the tightness and togetherness and family-like atmosphere of this group, he is a perfect leader for this team. Very unselfish. We've had Ty Pennington come in and get series lately. He's a redshirt freshman from Sand Springs, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. For those of you that don't know, the high school football down there is phenomenal. And he was a good get to get here. And Chad has no problem with him taking his turn. He is a total team guy. He is one of those guys, if you have a daughter out there and if you could arrange a marriage, you would certainly sign up for. I mean, he is a top-notch guy.
Well, in the offseason, you lost, Pitt did anyway, lost Caleb Lewis and Christian Carter in the portal, right? Yep. So you talked about him being a game manager.
Yep.
And so a lot of people thought that's going to be impactful to the Pitt State offense, but it continues to hum right along. What have they done to make the offense so consistent in spite of those defections?
After the loss to Ferris State, Brian Wright told Eddie on the postgame show that they were going to hit the road and recruit, and they were going to add depth to the offensive line. And, to put in perspective, we had 7 guys make the trip, and 2 of them were coming off of what was still then COVID protocol. They'd just been released like on Thursday, traveled on Friday to Ferris State. So really had 5 full 100% healthy linemen. Right now, we're probably 10 deep and can rotate. Not only that, they got some guys that aren't just tackles or aren't just guards. They can move them around several moving pieces. And if you look at yards per rush without Caleb Lewis, who was our clear number 1 last year, we're rotating 3 different guys who are all really good and bring different skill sets to it. But the biggest improvement is the offensive line. And it looks, I was a fan in high school and junior high. When I was in 4th grade, my brother was a manager for the Pitt State football team. So it's been part of our family. And that was one thing that they were known for under Coach Fran and under Coach Broyles when they had the winning streak and were playing for national championships, had 2 Harlan Hills in the early 90s and Ronald Moore and Ronald West, because they were dominant up front and at the tight end position. And our tight end depth and offensive line depth is just out of this world right now. And, it truly proves that no matter what your skill set is, you still be able to run the football with 3 or 4 different guys, and they've been able to do that this year.
So, you mentioned the offensive line, and if you look at the team, they haven't given up very many sacks this year.
Yep.
Now, conversely, they haven't gotten to the quarterback very much either. But the team had not giving up that many yards, just 15, I think 285.
Yep.
And, they're not giving up a lot of points. I think it's like 17, something like that. What are they doing that's allowing them to be successful on defense in spite not getting to the quarterback in a pass-happy era of college football?
The thing that's a little deceiving, I'm a college football fan, even at the D1 level, and you take it, it's some of the better passing offenses in our league, Missouri Southern, Emporia, Central. All three of those teams, the Southern not to the extent of the other two, but it's snap, and within a second and a half to 2 seconds, it's out on the flat or it's over the middle. So it's hard to sack the quarterback. But the biggest thing with the defense this year is they are able to stop the run with just the front four. And that has been a calling card for the Northwest Missouri State for the last 20 years. They don't have to add an extra guy in the box to stop the run. Now, Saturday against Northwest, they may have to make some adjustments against their running game, but for the most part, they don't. And then the secondary, the depth at the secondary and the interchangeable parts that we have there, a couple of guys to watch. Jack Barkley, number 40, an inside linebacker, Bishop Kelly kid from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was a 5A district player of the year, first team All-State. He was a high school quarterback and a defensive end in Class 5A Oklahoma football. Moved to linebacker at Pitt, and he's been an unbelievable leader. And then also a couple of years ago, we got a transfer who came with Jordan Hindy a few years ago, who now plays safety, Michael Lacey. And again, everything I kind of said about Chad, an unbelievable student, an unbelievable guy, and a great leader. He gets everybody lined up, and Jack's kind of the spiritual, pump them up type guy. And it's just working right now. And with the big question mark I thought we were going to be really good, which we have at linebacker. I thought the secondary was going to be tremendous, and I feel like they've been better, especially with the depth and the injuries. We plug a different guy in and doesn't seem to really miss a beat. But coming into the year, I thought up front at the defensive tackle position and the starters and the guys that we've added to is the backups, it's just unbelievable. And that's been the biggest thing that Brian Wright and his staff has done here is quality depth. And the culture is off the charts here right now.
How does the team compare to last year's?
Better up front on the offensive line, not as good out on the edge because Christian Carter was a guy we lost to Memphis, and he is kind of a Colby Katz's 2.0. It's kind of like the Dolphins with Waddle and Tyreek. When you break the huddle, and then you have big Devin Garrison in the middle. So you had a lot of guys to count for. Not that some of the other guys, Jamal Horn was a guy that was going to fill in at that spot. He got hurt, tore his knee up, I believe, in the second game of the season. So it's been kind of a bullpen by committee for that second receiver spot. But Christian is a track guy. He's a Lee Summit North guy that played quarterback, and blink of an eye, he can run out of the screen. And I feel like he's been missed probably the most in the passing game, and I feel like that's why it's struggled. Probably why Devin's targets and production's down a little bit, because when you have Katzis on the right, Carter on the left, and then you have to line up and find the tight end over the middle, that causes a lot of stress on defense. That's the one part that's missing, but they run the ball a little bit better. So I guess it's kind of a give and take thing. And then up the middle, Zeke Wall was a program kid, PJ Sarwinski, a program kid, two-time All-American, and Brandon Malikas. We lost those guys up the middle and replaced them with some quality players. That Cole Sample is a kid, Tonganoxie kid, that has had a tremendous year. He's a two-sport athlete, throws the shot put as well, one of the top throwers in the league. So it's just been kind of a plug and play. Back in the day, we've had the radio contract for the Gorillas since 2017, and they would say, well, our quarterback's out or our right tackle's out going into a game against Emporia Northwest, and right. I'd be a nervous wreck. And over the last couple of years, we just move another guy in. It's next man up, and the depth, again, the depth that they've built has really been the difference in this team.
I want to talk about the fan base a little bit, just very quickly. But it's a fan base that was used to winning, and then there was kind of what can only be described as like a dry spell for Pitt State in terms of success compared to the history of the program. The fans were MIAA from the website, from d2football.com. And I really felt that. And I was like, where are the Pitt State folks? Well, they're starting to trickle back. And I'm starting to see them engage in a national conversation once again. So really what I'm getting at is I'm wanting to know, What's the mood? What's the excitement of the fan base in Pittsburgh right now?
The fan base is very positive. The thing about Pittsburgh State is it's kind of like Nebraska is what I compare it to. If you look at the success they had and then no success, and then, they're still not back to what their fans expect them to be. As far as the school and athletics and everything, we don't want for anything here with the indoor and the facilities. Fans always step up and willing to donate. And when Coach Beck was let go at the end of the 19 season, and then Coach Wright was hired literally weeks before the world shut down with COVID, and then they tried to play 4 games, and there was a couple of incidents that happened that year with some players, some holdovers, some new guys, and Coach Wright and the staff or the fans didn't really get off on the right foot. He never really had a chance to do anything because, think about if anybody started a new job and then COVID hit, it would be hard to kind of connect with them. And then a couple of tough losses, missed some kicks in 21, finished 8-3. Everybody was disappointed, didn't go to the playoffs. And then things started to turn around a little bit. Now, as far as sitting in the stands and staying for the whole game and supporting it, we're not quite there yet. But when they have the kickoff party, which used to be the gala where they raise all the money or a lot of the money for the year, it is packed and people spend and still give. They still support it, but it was just kind of how it is. Northwest has had, how long have they had Northwest guys? All these guys and assistants under Coach T, right. Well, there's no connection really to Pittsburgh State with anybody on this staff, and that hadn't been the case since 1984. And, you sit there and think, well, 84 was only 20 years ago. No, it wasn't. It was 20 years ago. So it's just been kind of ingrained in generations a little bit. And just like everything else, Brandon, in this business, when you win, everything is much better.
It's amazing how that happens. So,
yes.
All right. So Northwest is the opponent for the Gorillas this week. Obviously, Northwest is down a little bit this year. What do the Gorillas fear, if anything, about the Bearcats?
Well, speaking for myself is, and I'm sure Coach Wright has sent this message to the team, whether Northwest was 0-7, 4-3, or 7-0, I watched, Brandon, all this run from I was in college when Coach Churchma started this back in the late 90s, and then watching them on ESPN, following them on your website, watching live streams, listening online throughout their playoff runs and national championships. It got to the point to where up until this year, I was the same way with Alabama. When Northwest would have stepped on the field at any given time in 2016, that's one of their better teams they've had in a while. If they'd have played the Dallas Cowboys, I said Northwest is not going to lose. If they're dominated at halftime, down 14-0, have got nothing going on, every stat category they're dominated, I still think they get the bounce. And I'm not saying it's luck. This is all created because of hard work and their attention to detail. And what Northwest did, in my opinion, with Coach Churchma and then everybody from now to Coach Wright, is the little details and the little things that go unnoticed and the prep time. And then all that equates to a punt bounces off of one of the coverage guys and you fall on it. Short field, you kick a field goal and you win in overtime. And the 98 championship game, still one of my favorite football games to follow. So even though I'm a Pitt State guy, I have a ton of respect. And I'm telling you, for the last 20 plus years, if Northwest playing Pitt State, just like on Saturday, Pitt State's going to have to play perfect to beat them because of what I call Northwest magic. I'm not saying it's luck. It's magic because I've seen it happen too many different times.
All right. So what is your prediction for the game this weekend?
I think 2 years ago, Pitt State missed a field goal, lost 20-19. Last year, Northwest bobbled a 2-point conversion, falling out of bounds to send it to overtime. I think it's going to come down to the final play. And the team that wins the turnover battle, I know that sounds cliche, but it is so huge for this team, for Pittsburgh State. They don't turn it over that much, but they also haven't played a defense with a scheme like Northwest Missouri State. I think Pitt State wins it, but it's going to be a 24-21 type game, and it's going to come down to the final play.
Very good. Well, Mike Snow, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. Keep up the good work.
Just wanted to take this opportunity to thank those who have supported D2 football this year. D2 football is free, but it isn't cheap. Your support helps offset our expenses and allows us to expand our coverage. If you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us. visit d2football.com/support. Or if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, click contact on the website to find our mailing address. But again, thank you for supporting D2 Football.
Welcome back to MIAA Weekly. We are joined now by the voice of the UCM Mules, Greg Hassler. Greg, thank you very much for joining us today.
Brandon, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you on here. So the Mules were 4-7 last year. Before we talk about this week, I want to talk about the program in general. But they're 4-7 last year, 6-1 so far this year. I have to assume everybody around there is happy with where the program is right now.
Very excited. When you go back, you can go back a little farther. 2019, they make the second round of the playoffs. They lose at Ferris State. COVID hits, no season, but still high expectations. But then they go 4-7 and 4-7. And of course, Josh Lamberson, first year head coach last year. What a turnaround in just a very short period of time. And the Mules are 6-1. They're relevant in the playoff conversation. They're relevant in the Harlan Hill Trophy conversation with Zach Zabrowski. So this time of year, when it's this late in the year, it's fun to still be relevant and talk about those things.
It is. And so, at the beginning of the year, you mentioned the back-to-back 4-7 seasons. What were your expectations coming into the year for the team?
My expectations were none. I had zero. I had Pitt State and Emporia State, the two best teams in the MIAA. Northwest was probably going to be there. I thought, if we could somehow beat Lincoln the last game of the year and get 6 wins, you know what? Maybe we could go to a bowl game. That would be a great achievement after going 4-7 and 4-7. So I'm really excited about the way that things have turned out this year. Coach Lamberson has a whole new coaching staff, a whole bunch of new guys, brought in a whole bunch of other guys. The portal was very, very friendly to UCM, and they have made it click.
You mentioned Zach Zabrowski earlier. Was there any inclination at the beginning of the season that he would be and have the kind of season that he's having to this point?
Cedric Case and Zach Zabrowski were the same guy coming out of camp. All right. And they were neck and neck, all the analytics, all the film, everything had them tied. So the first game of the year, Thursday night at Missouri Western, they were both going to play. And whoever came through, shined through, was going to get the start from there on. So Cedric had a great start. He was really good. He got hurt. And then Zach came in, I think probably earlier than they wanted to bring him in. And he was awesome. And he has not looked back at all. He has been really good. He's on the money. He's the son of a coach. His father coaches on the KU football coaching staff.
Okay.
So he's been around football his entire life. Very high football IQ.
You mentioned that you have a Harlan Hill candidate. It's obviously him. If they decide to nominate him, because you could go with receivers as well. But long story short, you had a winner in 2010 in Eric Cerneski.
Yes.
Compare the two. What are the similarities? What are their differences?
I kind of went back and just looking at the numbers a little bit. Numbers are very close. They both like Zach has 30 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He's already thrown for nearly 2,700 yards. He didn't play. They took him out before the first half even ended against Northeastern State. But, they did the same thing with Braden Gleason of Emporia State. They took him out early too. You don't want to get those guys hurt. But Zach is his filled vision. Everybody's got a number one wide receiver. Everybody's got that guy. Everybody kind of has a number two. Not a lot of guys have 3, 4, and 5, which the Mules have. And when you got that many guys out there running and he's able to go through his progressions and find the open guy, and he does a great job at it.
It's interesting you said that, because that's where I wanted to head next. When talking about the wide receivers, have been some great individual wide receivers at UCM in the past. No doubt about that. However, I was at the Pitt Central game, and my takeaway was that this might be the best group that Central has ever had. Is that overblowing the situation, or do you think that's accurate?
No, I think that's accurate. As a group, the Mules have had some great number one guys. But, Arkell Smith leads the MIAA in receiving. He is outstanding, 25 touchdowns now on his career. That's a new school record. But then you throw in Michael Fitzgerald, 6'6", out of Atlanta, Georgia, transfer from UMass. You have DeMarcus Gregory, started at Ole Miss as a freshman. He's 6'2", 205 out of Duncan, South Carolina. Jack Pospisil, he's been here. He's out of Colorado, just a sophomore. And then you throw in a freshman like Zach Phipps and Price Morgan, and we're not even talking about Zion Perry. I mean, and it just goes deeper than that. Those guys are just so talented, and the Mules go fast. If you're not paying attention, the play has already started and gone.
Well, I mentioned that I'd, watched the game in person, which I think it's very important to watch things in person because video to me never tells the story. My eyes in person do tell the story. I thought that the UCM offense was going to be as good as most offenses that in the country that are playing at a high level. That's an offense that could theoretically get you into a deep playoff run. However, I didn't feel the same way about the defense. Now, they were facing Pitt State that day. Having said that, what does the defense need to do to try to raise its level to match the success of the offense?
They have to keep getting better, which they have. First-year defensive coordinator Greg Jones. A lot of people know that name.
Right.
Hall of Fame guy. He was a GA at Northwest, and then a couple of state championships at Kearney. Went to Oregon as a special advisor for a year. Then back onto the sideline with UCM on the defense. I think they have some good defensive players. They got a lot of new guys. The defense is getting better each game. Hey, I'm not the biggest Mule defense fan in the world. I've called a lot of Mules football, and the defense has been a little shaky, to say the least. But this defense is probably one of the better ones that I've seen, and it continues to get better. They make in-game adjustments, and I still worry about it, but I'm not as worried as I have been in the past.
All right. This week, UCM's involved in the MIAA's Game of the Week. They host Emporia State. It's somewhat of a must-win game for both programs in terms of the playoffs. What do you fear most about Emporia, or what does the program fear most about Emporia State?
Well, Emporia State's an unbelievable football team. Like I said earlier, they were one of my top 2 picks in the MIAA. Garrett Higgins, he's kind of like a mad scientist of offense. I mean, he just dials stuff up. I picture him walking around with a bunch of drink napkins in his pocket with all these different plays drawn on him, just all kinds of stuff. And he's that kind of guy. He's kind of an offensive genius, and we've seen that over the years with some of the stuff that he does. And he's got the talent on offense to pull it off. A lot of teams don't have the talent to pull it off. He does. Right. He's got the quarterback. He's got the running game. He's got 2 of the best wide receivers in the MIAA. He's got a solid defense. I'm not going to say it's the number 1 defense in the MIAA, but it's solid. It's good. So this is a really good Emporia State team that they can score. Just like the Mules, they can score. This is going to come down. Well, first of all, it's a game that may never end. It may just go on forever.
I knew as a broadcaster, you might think that.
There's going to be over 100 passes thrown in this thing, and I don't know, might have like 10 overtimes. But they are a very good team. They're very well coached. They have a lot of great players. Emporia State over the years with Garen, Coach Higgins has just been really good. And when you have a good team, they're always going to be scary.
So one last thing, Greg, not to put you on the spot, but we'll put you on the spot.
Okay.
What's your thought for a final score in this one?
My thought for a final score. Well, it's homecoming this weekend, so there's going to be a ton of people there. It's going to be very loud. And if I had to set the line, but you can't bet in Missouri, but if I could set the line, I would call it a pick'em game, and I would only make the Mules a 3-point favorite because they're at home. That's what you do. So I'd say Mules are -3. I think it's going to be a great game. I think I would not be. I got to say this correctly because I have a lot of family in Emporia. All right, they all grew up there, so I know a lot of people in Emporia. My family's still there, so my dad went to Emporia State, so I got a lot of Emporia ties. I would be maybe a little surprised if we lost, maybe not shocked. When you have 2 great teams playing each other, just about anything can happen. I really think the team that makes the fewest mistakes will win this game.
Very good. Well, that is Greg Hassler. He is the voice of the Mules. Good luck to the Mules this weekend.
All right. Thank you much.
All right, and just a reminder, if you are a business person or want to become one and would like to run a restaurant, Boss's Pizza and Chicken is looking for franchisees. Go to the upper right corner of their website, contact them if that kind of thing interests you, and please let them know that you heard about them from us. But it's a great product. We're very happy to have them aboard, and we would hope that you support them and maybe even become business partners with Boss's Pizza and Chicken. And welcome back. Let's go ahead and take a look at week 8 in the MIAA. Take a look at the schedule and predict the outcome of the games. So how will they turn out this week? Let's take a look first at Missouri Western and Nebraska Kearney. I'm going to predict a 38-21 win for the Griffins, even though it's on the road. A little earlier start too, but I think the Griffins will still prevail in spite of a potential hangover off the Northwest loss. Fort Hays is at Washburn, and the Tigers going to come away with a 35-17 win over the Ichabods, who, as we talked about last week, and it continues, a bad season for the Bods. Missouri Southern, an easy win at Lincoln. Easier than the score will appear. It'll be a 27-13 win for Southern, but they will control the football game the entire way. Central Oklahoma going to win big over Northeastern State for supremacy in Oklahoma, a 40-13 win. Let's go ahead and look at Pittsburgh State at Northwest Missouri. I think, as I said earlier in the show, I think the Gorillas are going to finish undefeated. I have the Gorillas winning 27-21 over the Bearcats to move to 8-0. Now, talking about the game of the week in the MIAA, I want to look at a little tail of the tape between Emporia State and Central Missouri. Mules, obviously, as we know, have an incredible scoring offense. I would have thought that Emporia was scoring a little more than 37 a game. Nonetheless, it's still pretty good. Scoring defense, those things kind of flip. Emporia does a little bit better job holding opponents out of the end zone. Mules giving up a lot of points right now, and as I've said several times, including the talking to Greg Hassler, the defense is what I thought would be their Achilles heel this year from having a deep playoff run. Both teams moved the football, 477 for Emporia, 549 for Central. Those are great numbers. I was a little surprised to see when I did this dive that the Mules were actually holding teams to fewer yards than Emporia. I would not have guessed that Emporia was at 405 a game, and giving up. That's quite a few. Emporia is adequate at rushing the football. The Mules are adequate at rushing the football. That's pretty good, actually. Emporia is okay. Neither of them defend the run that well. You see 164 a game. That's a high number. 134 is a little bit better, but these are teams with playoff aspirations, and obviously teams that want to win playoff games. And you'll have to do a little bit better than that against the run. Passing offense, both teams can throw the football, goodness gracious. And that's as good as you'll get in a D2 game at high level between two great teams, that many yards per team. And they both give up, right around 240, 241, as you see. Those are okay numbers. Sometimes that happens to teams that score a lot. But because their opponents are always trying to catch up, so they have to score a little bit more, and they're putting the ball in the air a little bit more than they would like. So how do I think that one's going to come out? Let's go ahead, and I have on my handy sheet of paper that Emporia State is going to fall to the Mules, and I think the Mules will win in this game. And I'm going to say it's going to be 42-35 in a very high scoring game. And as we've joked about several times, a game that's going to last for a very long time. So MIAA Weekly is a production of D2Football.com. We want to invite you to join us every Sunday night at 7 for an inside look at Division II football on inside D2 football. You can visit the homepage of d2football.com every Sunday for the link. I want to thank Mike Snow and Greg Hassler for joining us for this episode. I'm Brandon Meisner. Thank you very much for watching,